Number 9 on this review says that Judy can buy 4 hot dogs and 3 hamburgers for $11.35. From the same restaurant, John can get 5 hot dogs and 2 hamburgers for $10.25. And our whole goal is to find out what the price of a hot dog is. Well, let's look at this because what I see is almost 2 different variables because it's supposed to be 4 times the price of a hot dog. And you're going to add that to 3 times the price of a hamburger, and that's going to give you your total of $11.35. So we have 2 variables involved in this. Let's look at this one over here. John can get 5 hot dogs, so 5 times the price of a dog, plus 2 times the price of a hamburger equals, that total would come to $10.25. Well, because we got 2 variables involved, we can create what we call a system of equations to solve this. So it means that we've got more than one equation involved. So there's the first equation. Here's our second equation. And we'll link it and say this is a system. Now the whole goal is to find the price of a hot dog. We could solve this system equation. I'm sure you've learned 3 ways, one by graphing, one by substitution, and one by elimination method. If you solve by graphing, you'd want to see where these 2 lines would cross on the coordinate plane. The issue is that when you graphed, likely you learned how to do it by slope and y-intercept. And to put this in slope-intercept form and to graph it precisely would be really difficult, and so you might not actually ever find your answer because you'd have a hard time deciphering what the actual answer would be. So graphing is not the best choice for this. Substitution would mean you'd want to isolate one of these variables so you could plug it into the other equation. Well, the issue with substitution is, do you see the numbers in front of each of these variables, those coefficients? Well, when you're going to isolate, that means you're going to have to move that coefficient away, which could result in fractions or even more decimals. So again, it gets a little bit trickier. So your best method would be to solve by elimination method. We're just trying to find the price of a hot dog. So if we could get rid of the information that's related to hamburgers, that would help me solve for my dogs. So in other words, if I could get rid of this letter here, the H, and not even have it in the problem, and I could solve for this dog, then that means that I would know the answer to this question. So that's what we're going to do, is to get rid of these H's. We're going to eliminate them. How do we do that? To eliminate the H's, we need to get the H's to be opposites of each other. For example, if I can get this to become 6H and this to become negative 6H, those would cancel if we added them together. Well, how do I get this to become 6H? Well, I would multiply 2 times that 3H, and it would make a 6H. But if I multiply this by 2, everything else in the equation needs to get multiplied by 2. So that's what we're going to start with here. So we're going to start by multiplying 2 times 4D, which would give me 8D, plus 2 times the 3H, we're distributing here, would give me 6H. Now for this last part right here, you can totally use a calculator or you can do the math on the side, but you're going to want to do 2 times this $11.35 to get $22.70. All right, and now we've got one of our equations changed. Well, let's look at what we need to change in the second equation here. The second equation here, it's going to be, we've got positive 6H, so now we need to get this to become a negative 6H. Well, what can I multiply times 2 to make it a negative 6? Well, if I multiply this whole thing by negative 3 times 2H makes it that negative 6H that I want. Well, let's multiply everything else by negative 3 then. Negative 3 times 5 would be negative 15D. And then negative 3, we're going to have to again multiply times this $10.25. So that's going to give me negative 30.75. Now what we're going to do is what we call add straight down. When we add straight down, we just add everything up together. So this 8D plus this negative 15D would give me negative 7D. These H's, 6H plus negative 6H, they cancel. And then the last thing I want to do is add straight down with those numbers that you see there. So I want to do 22.70 plus, or in this case, minus 30.75. When I do that, I'm going to get negative 8.05. Now, all we have to do to solve this is divide both answers by 7, by a negative 7. What I do to one side, I do to the other, And that gives me that a price of a single hot dog is actually going to be $1.15 when I divide. So that would be answer choice C.